Okay, so this video is Empanadas de Horno, which come from Argentina. Most of the Latin American and South American countries have some version of what we would consider a meat pie. The difference really comes in the ingredients that go into each, based on seasonality, availability of the spicing and things like that. So what we're going to be working on here is I have the mixture here for the dough, and I have flour, butter, ice cold water. Okay, that's going to go into the Robocoo and just get pulsed until it's set enough to form a dough. It will get refrigerated for at least an hour, and then we'll come back and fill them. In the meantime, we'll be making the filling, and we have some beef that has been diced, cumin, paprika, crushed red pepper, salt, black pepper. Okay, and into that mixture we're going to put our onions and raisins that have been plumped in boiling water. And after that mixture is cooled, we're going to add our green olives and egg into that mixture, and that's what we'll be using to fill the pies with. Okay, but the first thing that we're going to be working on is the dough, because it does have to rest for at least an hour before we do anything with it. So I'm going to place my flour in here. Okay, I also need a little bit of salt in that as well. Okay, we're going to add, first we're going to give this a pulse just to make sure the butter gets, or I'm sorry, the salt gets incorporated. Okay, and after that we're going to go ahead and add all of our butter. And again, you could do this by hand. You can most certainly cut this in just like you would in normally making a pie dough. But in this instance, we're just going to go ahead and use the Robocoo because this will do the job for us. Okay, so now I just want to pulse this just for a couple seconds. And what we're trying to do here is just get a little bit of the butter to start incorporating out into the flour mixture. Okay, you can see that we have a little bit of that ready now. So I'm going to add my water, and then I'm just going to pulse this again until we have a dough that forms. Okay, and you can see that we have kind of a soft dough that's going to form here. I'm going to take this out, wrap it in plastic wrap, stick it in the refrigerator for 1 hour, and then we're going to go ahead and get started on the meat filling for that. Okay, and this is really an important step because we don't want to overwork this dough. If we do, the glutens will get really tough. The dough will not be tender, nice and flaky. It'll turn out being a little bit more mealy. So we want to make sure that we allow for the glutens to relax and for the butter to chill a little bit. That'll make it a little bit easier for us to make these in our next phase. Okay, behind me here, we're going to go ahead and get started on the meat filling. Okay, into my pan, I'm going to just add a little bit of oil. And I'm going to start by browning the beef here first. I want to get my pan really nice and hot. I may add a little bit more oil just to make sure that we're getting a nice caramelization on our meat. Then we're going to add the onions, the raisins, soften those up, add all of our spice mix, take that off, let it cool, fold in our eggs and our olives, and then we're going to take it from there. And just like with everything else that we do as far as braising, stewing, anything, we want to develop that caramelization on our beef. That's going to give us a little more depth of flavor, and it will just be a nicer color. I'm going to add just a little bit more oil. And I want to make sure, notice that I use a pan that's probably a little bit bigger than I would need to do this filling. What I want to make sure is that I get good distribution and I get all of this stuff really making good contact on the bottom of the pan so that we get a good caramelization on it. You can see that there are some already that are starting to caramelize. We're just going to keep going until the rest do. Notice that I'm not stirring a whole lot, and one of the things that I'm doing is trying to make sure that it stays pretty flat on the bottom so that we're getting that caramelization that we're looking for. Right about now we're going to be adding the onions and the spice mix, and then we'll add our raisins to this mixture, and we'll be just about ready to go with moving our empanadas to the finishing stage. Okay, I'm going to add my cumin, because again, these are oil soluble. We want to make sure that we're toasting those spices a bit during the process here. Okay, so there's my paprika, my crushed red pepper, hit it with my salt, and my black pepper. Give it a nice stir. Okay. I'm going to add the onions. That'll stop anything from cooking. And the raisins. And all I want now is just to cook it long enough to soften up the onions. Okay, so the filling has been cooked to where we need it. We're going to let that mixture cool a little bit, add our eggs and our olives, and then we'll be back to make the actual empanadas and get them ready for baking. Okay, so my dough has rested for an hour. My filling is all mixed, it's ready to go. So now we're just going to work on rolling out the empanadas. I'm using a silk pat. You can most certainly use just the regular surface on this. We do want to just have a nice dusting of bench flour on that. We're going to add just a little bit onto the top of the dough just to make sure that it doesn't stick. And I'm going to also do the same thing with my rolling pin here. Okay. And what I want to do is just kind of work this out nice and slow. I don't want the dough to be too thick. I also don't want it to be too thin either. I have some tools at my disposal here as well if I need them. Notice that I keep moving the dough around a little bit on the Silpat. I want to make sure that it's not sticking anywhere, and just in case it is, again, I have more bench flour. I can just put a little bit across the top. If I need to, I can flip this dough over, do the same thing on the back side here, but so far we're looking pretty good. So all I'm going to do now is just work this out so that I get a nice even thickness all the way around. Remember that whenever you are using a Silpat, don't use an actual knife on the surface, because if you cut the Silpat, we won't be able to ever use it again. Okay, have my dough nicely rolled out here. A couple spots where it's sticking, so I'm just going to work that up, get a little bit more bench flour underneath of it. You see that the dough is really nice and smooth. I have it pretty well even all the way across. We're going with a 4-inch here, circle cutter. Again, I'm not gonna twist this, because if I do, I might cut the Silpat. I'm just gonna push down just enough to score through the dough. I wanna try to get as many of these as I can out of each roll. And if I do anything with the scraps, I will re-roll it only one time, because normally with doughs like this, the more we work them, the more we roll them, the tougher they're gonna get, and the less it's gonna be enjoyable for somebody. Okay, so I have enough here to cut to make 6 of these. I'm gonna go ahead and remove all of my excess. Okay, and now I'm going to fill. I use about a tablespoon per each one of these. I'm going to just make sure that we get a good mixture of everything in it. Okay, now that I have them all filled, all I'm going to do is fold them over. Make sure that I tuck all of the filling in. And I just want to make sure that I get one side glued to the other. I'm going to also fork these so that we create a nice little design around the outside that will also help it from blowing open, because we definitely don't want to lose all of our mixture. If we wanted to take another step, we most certainly could egg wash these as well. That'll help glue everything. But with us using the fork, what that's going to do is dock the dough and really close it down around that filling and basically secure all of that for us. Okay, so after I have them all filled, and closed down, just want to get a little flour on my fork so that it doesn't stick in the dough. And then the important part of this is to make sure that when we do fork this down, that we don't push into the filling itself or it will bust out. I have a half-sheet tray with a piece of parchment paper on it ready. I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees. So at this stage, once these are done, I will pop them in the oven. They'll take about 10 to 12 minutes and our empanadas will be ready. Okay, now that these are done, I'm going to go ahead and proceed with rolling out the rest of this dough and putting a few more on this tray and baking them in the oven. Okay, so our empanadas have been in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. They have a really nice color all the way around them. And now all we're going to do is set up to plate these guys. Okay, I do have, I don't know, just felt like doing something a little bit different with this preparation. So I'm going to take a few of these guys and just lay them out on my wood here. Okay. I have a little fresh cilantro that I'm going to put on here, and I'm also going to reintroduce some of the green olives that are actually in the empanada, and then we're going to cut one open so we can see what the inside of them look like. Okay, so I just have a few of the green olives here. I'm just going to kind of drop them wherever, let them land however and wherever they wish. Again, these are just kind of just to build a little bit more onto my platter here. I have a little fresh cilantro that I'm going to throw on there as well, just to kind of dress up the platter. Okay, so now that we have that ready, I'm going to take one of these guys and cut it open. Okay, you can see that the inside of that is really nice, really hot. You can see that there's a little bit of flakiness, a little bit of mealiness to the empanada itself. But if I was going to serve this as an appetizer, I would probably serve it just about like that. And that is our Empanada de Horno from Argentina.